Alright, so I want to do a video today on my Notchback that I have that I've done some modifications to, that I kind of wish I would have done some videos of the process of what I did, but I didn't because I kind of did it pretty sporadically over a little bit of time. So, but I figured I'd make a video here and kind of just show you some of the modifications that I've done to my car with the fuel injection and the turbo and I'm switching to E85. Well, I've been on E85, but I've been having problems with my flex fuel sensor. It wants to give me bad readings, and so I think I have a fix for that, so I was gonna mess with that today. But first, let me show you. I have Tuner Studios open here, and I'll show you a little bit on how this works. So if I turn the key on, you hear the fuel pump primes. But so this is my flex fuel ethanol percentage, and I have it turned off right now because it wasn't reading right. So I upped the fuel out in my fuel tables to kind of allow for that extra 30% fuel the E85 burns, and it's running okay, but it's a little off. So I had it kind of dialed in, so you get your car basically dialed in with regular 93 gasoline, and then you get it running to what you like, and then when you switch over E85, it'll read depending on this reading here. Like, so if it's a true E85, this will say 85, and the fuel compensation for true E85 will be kind of close to 160, 150, somewhere in there. This needle will kind of tell you how much more fuel it's adding on top of your actual regular fuel tables. And so what's been happening with my flex fuel sensor is it'll read E85 when I first turn the key on, and it kind of primes and it starts up, but then it'll just dips way down into the 60s and even 50%. And so then what that does is it's not giving me enough fuel. Since I'm getting an inaccurate reading, it runs like crap because it's only compensating like 120% instead of 150%. And so it really doesn't work right. So, and I think what the problem is that the flex fuel sensor, from what I read, everybody puts it in their return line, and which it kind of works, but the problem is I think I don't have enough restriction in my return line for it to have a constant flow of fuel running over the sensor. So it's kind of just making it read totally wrong. And people say you can restrict, I guess, the return line, but I don't really know of a great way to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move my sensor from the return line that I have it now, and I'm going to put it in the feed line right before the regulator and see if that does the trick. But let me show you some of the modifications that I've made to the car. Starting back here. So this is a stock 1600 block, and it's just nothing special. Unknown amount of miles on it, the short block anyway. And so all I did, I put some new pistons and cylinders in there, which I did a video of, gapping the rings for boost, and so that's really all I did to it. Oh, I put some high rev, heavy duty high rev valve springs on the heads, which the heads are just stock heads as well, and except for the heavy duty valve springs. And so I put those in there. I gapped the rings, and other than that, it's just stock rocker arms, everything. And so what I did is I took my stock manifolds here, which you can down here. There's the stock Type 3, dual carburetor manifolds, and I welded in some bungs for for the injectors. And then got these fuel rails here. They're like CV Performance fuel rails. The injectors are actually LS truck injectors off a 4.8 liter LS engine. And so those injectors, can't remember how many pound injectors they are, or cc's. I think they're somewhere in the, I think they're like 25 or something, 26 pound injectors, which is plenty for this motor. And then these here are LS3 coils. I'm trying to see how many LS things I can put on this little motor, but these are LS3 coils. And I'm running a Megasquirt 2 computer that I got from the dub shop, and he kind of set Mario there set the computer up so I can run these coils. I know there's a little modification you have to do to the Megasquirt 2 to run you know, coil on plug, which is basically what this is. And but you get some good spark. And I don't remember what plug I'm running. I don't remember what heat range it is, but maybe I'll look it up, put it on the screen. Let's see. So my throttle body here is just I think it's a Toyota throttle body, and it uses a throttle position sensor. Is like a Bosch style throttle position sensor. I just got this thing off eBay for like 50 or 60 bucks, and came with the throttle position sensor. And so this is my this adjusts my idle. This is a idle valve basically, and it just regulates air that I'm bypassing, so that it does my idle kind of IAC, intake air control. And that was kind of a pain in the butt to get working right, but it's I do have it working right, and it seems to be okay, because it's a 3-wire, and apparently a 2-wire is easier to get working right, whereas a 3-wire, and it just works a little bit differently. But I'm not going to get into all that. But the manifold here I just made out of I believe this is inch and 3/4, maybe 1.5 inch tube, and it the size of it worked out good with the stock manifolds, and I just welded that up, kind of widened it into a single, I think this is like 2 1/4 right here, and for my throttle body, and that all worked out good. So this here is my intercooler. So this is air to water intercooler. So there's a, you know, honeycomb in here. It's like a core inside here, like a kind of like a heater core, and so the air goes around that while the water runs through that core, and it cools your intake air temperatures. This is my blow off valve. This is just an eBay, you know, eBay special blow off valve, nothing special. My turbo is also just an eBay turbo, a GT25 knockoff, and it's been doing good. It's got my exhaust is really just straight exhaust from here out. This down here, if you can see, is right there is my wideband. So that's an oxygen sensor that goes to my wideband gauge that's on my dash, and then it goes from that wideband gauge on the dash and goes to my computer, and the computer, the Megasquirt 2, can read off of that gauge that's on the dash, and gives my computer all the information as far as the O2 sensor goes. So it's a wideband instead of a narrowband. That works out good. And here, so I'll come under here. See, oh, my car's kind of low, so it's hard to see, but I made my own header. I just kind of welded it, just reused regular J tubes, and then in the front there I just welded everything into a, looks like an octopus, but basically welded it into all together, all 4 tubes into my flange for the turbo there. And then I have my this is just an eBay special wastegate I do have a boost controller that I'm running, but it's not hooked up right now because I'm at, just with the spring here, I'm at 13 pounds on spring, and I probably have 2 springs in there, and that's seems to be really happy at 13 pounds, so I'm just kind of leaving it there. I might turn it up to 20 just to see if this motor being stock can handle it. Maybe when I'm ready to build a new motor I'll do that. And I might turn it up, just see how high I can turn it up, see what the breaking point is, but right now I'm gonna just keep it at 13 pounds and have some fun. And let's see, so my return oil is here on the bottom of my turbo, and I have it run straight down here, if you can see, to the block. I just tapped a hole into the bottom of the block there and just drain it into there. So far it seems to work. It's not smoking or anything. It's only a 3/8 line for my return, which maybe a 1/2 inch or 5/8 would probably be more ideal, but 3/8 seems to be working. It's not smoking, so that's good. Let's see, I also welded in some bungs here, if you can see them, on my valve covers on both sides, and I have that running up to I have them plumbed up here to my this breather that I made. I basically just took a 2 1/4 pipe and put some holes in it and put a little air filter on top here for just to let my engine breathe, so I don't get any backup pressure in the crankcase. And that seems to be working pretty good for just kind of slapping it together, and but that's working good. So I have it coming from the valve covers and coming from my fuel pump block off here. And then for my distributor, since I'm not running the distributor anymore, since I got my coils coil on plug, I just took the distributor and I literally just cut it off, and then I just welded this solid, the hole that was there from the distributor. I just welded it solid. That's my plug. It seemed to work pretty good. Wasn't too difficult. So yeah, I think that's about all the modifications. Well, my fuel line, so I'll run over that real quick, is it's 3/8 fuel line, and see these little white slashes on here, whatever you call them, tracers. So that indicates that this is E85 or ethanol friendly and fuel line, so I can run E85. And my filter here is a big filter. You don't want to use the small one, they clog, but this is the biggest filter I could for good for the money. And but it has a stainless steel mesh filter inside there for E85 as well. You can't use paper with E85. But then, so it comes from my fuel pump, which is up under my front beam, through here, and feeds this fuel rail. And then I have a line coming out the back of that fuel rail that comes over and feeds this fuel rail for my injectors. And then it comes out of this fuel rail into my fuel regulator, and this is what regulates my fuel. I'm running about 58 pounds, which is what truck injectors are rated for, so that's why I'm running 58. A lot of people run 40. If your injectors are rated for 40, then run 40, but these injectors are rated at 58 pounds. And running E85, I need all the fuel I can get, and I'm right on the edge of not having enough injector for the amount of boost that I'm running. But I'm still, I think I'm like 85% duty cycle on my injectors, which means they're working, they can't shoot much more fuel than what they are right now. But here's my flex fuel sensor, and this is what's giving me problems. So it's in my return line, so this is the feed, so this is all under 58 pounds of pressure, but then the fuel that's coming out the back of that for the return is just not much pressure on there, and I think it's just not getting a good reading. I think it's just trickling through it, and so it's getting it's not going through the way it needs to go through. the sensor in order to read it correctly. I'm trying to move it to the feed side here and see if that helps kind of get the sensor to read more correct, so that it'll run the way it's supposed to and do everything it's supposed to do. The only other thing I did here was, so this, I put an alternator on here. I know they sell this as a kit through some companies, but I'm too cheap for that, so I just ordered this off eBay, and it's just off of a tractor, and it's pretty much the same alternator as they send you in the kit. It's really close anyway, but I just used my own brackets. This is actually like a seatbelt bracket here that I just had, and it just happened to work perfect and bolt right in. And then over here I just had to make this here like adjustable bracket to tension the belt, and but it all worked out. Oh, my belt's flipped around. Look at that, my belt's on there backwards. Wow, well, that's interesting. Well, I guess I gotta fix that. Maybe I need a little more tension on the belt, but that works really good though, as far as giving me a lot more amperage and keeping up with all my electronics, because I'm running a computer, I'm running fans, I'm running you know, my fuel pump, I'm running these big old fat coils, and so I got a lot of demand on my electrical system, and my generator just wasn't keeping up when I had it on here. The regulator and everything, it's just, my battery kept going dead, and but this worked out really good. If you got some skills to make a little bit of some brackets, it's a pretty easy conversion, and this cost me like not even $100, I think, and so far so good. It's working really good. And so I wanted to show you a little bit on how this air to water intercooler works, or at least how I have it set up. So obviously my turbo's making heat coming through here, getting cooled off, going to the engine, and so I'll show you where these water lines go. I have them running up under the car, and it's got a little kink in it right there, but I got it running up under the car and coming up front here. And up front here I have them running to this. If you can see, it's kind of darker up here. So I have the lines running into my, which is basically a little radiator here, that I have, that I'm basically is getting air through my horn holes, so I didn't have to cut anything up going through those horn holes. It doesn't need a whole lot of airflow because I don't have that much heat. But I have these fans too, so I have it hooked to my computer, so that when I see my air temperature, intake air temperature, gets to a certain degrees, I think I have it at like, I don't know, 100 degrees or so, my water will turn on and start to flow, and that cools it down in itself without the fans. And then when I'm getting on it and getting into boost, my temperatures, if they get up to, I think 120, my fans come on, and then that brings it back down to 100, and then the fans shut back off. So they don't run very much. They're not like on all the time. It's only when I'm really getting into boost they'll come on for really just a couple minutes and then shut back off. And that seems to work really good, and it's all ran through the Mega Squirt. There's little basically pins that come off the computer that are pretty much, you can tell them what to do and when to do it, kind of thing. Inside the Tuner Studios program, you can change all the variables, and it basically just gives you a ground for on and off, and that seems to be working pretty good. It's pretty neat. I also have a couple lights on my dash that I repurposed. So there's these lights here. I don't even remember what those are for right here, but I have a red one that comes on when the pump turns on, so I know the pump's on, so I know I'm at about 100 degrees intake temperature. and then I have a yellow light that comes on here when my fans come on, so I know when they're on, and then when the fans turn off, the light turns off, so I can kind of keep an eye on all that without having to look at a gauge. I kind of know where I'm at, and that's pretty cool. See, I got a boost gauge, I got my wideband gauge just kind of sitting in here. I haven't fastened that or anything yet. I still got to finish all this, but yeah, that's basically what I got going on. That's all the modifications I made, and so far it's been pretty awesome, pretty neat. So except for this flex fuel sensor, because I really like the E85, the idea of the E85. Plus I wanted to have this cool sticker here, so I got to keep it corn fed so my sticker's accurate. And but it all I got to do is see if I can get this fuel sensor to work correctly, so that if I go on a road trip, mostly because I mean I can tune it for E85 and if I run it all the time, but then you have to, if you do that, you have to like kind of test it when you put fuel in your car to make sure that it's a true you know 85% content, and not like 70% or something, because then you can, if you're in boost, you can basically blow up your motor. Because oh, so another thing, when I'm running E85, I have the computer set so that when I'm on E85, it'll put more timing into the motor, and because you can, with E85 it burns cooler, so you can put more timing into it, and you can adjust that. Maybe I'll show you where to adjust that in the Tuner Studios, but you can kind of adjust how much timing it puts in with the E85, and then it kind of drops it in and out as far as the percentage. So if you're at like 70% ethanol, then it'll put a little bit less timing in on a percentage basis of, I think they do it off 100% ethanol like chart. So if you're 100% ethanol, you'll put, you know, X amount of timing in. If you're say 50% ethanol, then it's half of what that timing that you put in. So it kind of ramps it on that scale, and that's pretty neat. But yeah, so far I'm pretty happy with the whole fuel injected Megasquirt boost scenario. I'm real happy with it. It runs great, especially when in boost. It loves it, and so far it's staying together. But so I'm going to switch this sucker over and see if I can get it to work right, and then maybe I'll show you I'll show you how it works inside Tuner Studios, and go from there. Alright, so I got my fuel sensor out. This is what it looks like. It's got these little quick disconnects on here to 6AN fittings, which works out pretty good. I don't know where I'm going to put it, because this line's really short to put it in my feed. There's not much room in here, so I think I'm going to have to run a new line from here over and keep the sensor kind of where it was for my plug to kind of work, and then have it loop back around and go back into the top of this. Kind of sucks having to do all that, but if it works better, it'll be worth it. So I'll give that a shot. So I went to Jegs, and they didn't have the same fuel line with the little white dashes here in it that indicates that it's for E85, but I did say it's a Vibrant Performance line, and it does say right there that it's E85 friendly. So that's good to know. Vibrant Performance braided flexible race hose, black nylon. I got this at Jegs, and it doesn't have that little thing on there, but I'll just have to remember not to get this mixed up with my regular fuel line that I got laying around that looks just like this, that's not E85 friendly. So I'll have to make sure whatever I have left over this, I mark it so I can use it for in the future. But so what I'm going to do is, I didn't want to cut this line either here, the one that I already had on there, just in case I want to go back. so I didn't want to cut it. So I'm just going to leave it and put it on this end here and put the flex fuel sensor kind of in that area over there. And then I'm just going to run this, 90 it back around and over to here, kind of plumb it in there best I can. It's getting kind of tight in here. Not a whole lot of room underneath this little engine cover. Pretty crammed in here. So that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, so I got this all hooked back up. I just 90 degrees off here. Plug still reaches and fits in. It's actually easier to get to now, which would be kind of nice. Kind of leave it right in this spot for now. So now I have it coming from here, going around the regulator here, over through the flux sensor, and then back into the top of the regulator. And then the return line just goes straight to the tank. So I'm gonna see how that works. So we'll take a look in here. Get my computer to come back on. So I got to go through while this is booting up. I gotta go through my fuel tables and check. Oh, one second. So I'll have to go through my fuel tables and I'll have to put them back down. If I'm going to use the flex sensor, I got to put my fuel tables back to where they were when I was on 93 regular octane, and otherwise I'll be way too rich right now if I turn the flex fuel sensor on. So I'll show you how this works though. So fuel, let's see, I'll get you close here. The fuel settings here underneath in fuel settings, and there's the flex fuel. You click on that, and so right now I have it disabled, as you can see here. And so if I turn it back on, here I'll show you, I'll turn it back on and kind of show you, enable all the parameters. So the frequencies here is basically GM frequencies for a GM flex fuel sensor. So 50 Hertz is on the low side, high side 150, so that's the range, and that's what tells the computer reads that. Ethanol mix, so 0% is at 50 Hertz, and 100% ethanol, which would be, you know, E100, would be at 150 Hertz, and that's what the sensor's telling the computer. So fuel multiplier, this is, so 100% is just 100% of my fuel tables is, you know, so if I'm just regular gas, regular 93, then that's the 100% is what that says. So it's adding no fuel, it's just going off my fuel table. And then if I'm 100% E100, I'm adding 230% fuel to my tables. So that's kind of the range. And then timing addition. So here's where I can adjust the timing depending on. So I'm 0 at just regular gas, which is actually, so if I look at this right here, it says baseline ethanol 9.7. That's kind of an average of what your regular, yeah, it probably changes around the country, but here it's about 9.7, 10% roundabouts is your ethanol content of just regular 93 octane gas. So at 100% ethanol, it would add 3.5 degrees of timing throughout the entire timing table, and which I'd say it's kind of conservative. I could probably turn it up more than that, but that's just kind of what I'm rolling with. So far so good. And then down here I have, this is fallback fuel multiplier, which means, let's say your flex fuel sensor just quit at failure sensor, right? Sensor failure, then it adds 150%, which would be like E70 probably, and that'll be safe. That'll get you around if your flex fuel sensor decides to poop out on you. And 0 degrees goes back to 0 degrees of additional timing if your flex fuel sensor is not working. and so it's just kind of safe. It's, you know, if you have E85, it'll still run, although not as good. If you don't have as much, you know, if you have like E50 in it or something, it'll still run. It'll just be really rich. So it's kind of a happy medium there. That's kind of how this all works as far as the flex fuel sensor works. This is kind of the short of it. So what I need to do, since I'm enabled now, is I need to go into my fuel settings and go to my AFR table. So right now, oh no, not AFR table, I'm sorry, I need to go to my fuel table. So right now I'm really, this is all E85 tune I have in here, and I need to back it all back down to my regular table, which I took a picture of it in my phone. I'll have to decrease this all like across the board until I get it close to where I was, and then I'll be able to turn this back on and fire it up and see if it's working. But I'm gonna go through here and see if I can get my table back down to where it's supposed to be, and I'll come back here and go from there. Okay, so I changed all my fuel table back to where it was. That was a pain in the butt because I forgot to save it, and so I couldn't just import it. And for some reason, I'm not real proficient with this, but at the times here, I can multiply the whole table, but I can't seem to decrease, multiply, and reverse into the going down backwards. I haven't figured that out, so I had to go through and literally change every single cell. So, but now I'll save this one, and then I'll be able to import it if I want to go back to it again. But anyway, so let's see if I turn my key on. Okay, it's saying that, get rid of that. Okay, so now it's reading 88.5 ethanol percentage, and I'm not sure why this is. Let's go into my settings here and see what's going on. 230%. Oh, 230%. When I was messing with this before, trying to compensate for what my sensor was reading wrong, I put that up to 230, which is way too high. I don't remember what it was. I think it was at 160, I believe. No, maybe I think it was at 185, if I remember correctly. So if I do that, it's now about 160% at 88% ethanol, which that seems a little high, but maybe when it's running it'll come back down a little bit, but it's better than what it was doing. But I think this still might be a little too high. I have to play with that setting in here. So maybe 185 might be a little high. Maybe it was let's try 175%. Let's try that. Yeah, that's closer to what I remember at kind of reading when it was working. But well, I guess so what I'll do is I'll fire it up and I'll see where my air fuel ratio is at. Well, it's cold right now, so it's going to, it might be kind of hard to start because my fuel enrichment is probably all out of whack right now. But let's see. Make sure there's no fuel leaking real quick. running pretty close. It's kind of fluctuating a little bit. Let's see where my air fuel here is kind of fluctuating a good bit, but it's not too bad actually for my let's go over to dyno tuning. So this is my fuel enrichment here. So I'm at 120% fuel, but it's close. When it warms up, I'll be able to kind of see where I'm at as far as where I should be at idle, and then I can adjust my fuel percentage compensation to get it where I want to be. Right now it's not too bad, 14. It's warming up pretty good. So I'm reading right at 85%. That's a win, because before when I'd started up, it'd read 85 right at first, and then it would just keep dropping down all the way to like 50, and then it would just run like crap. And but now I'm getting a nice steady ethanol percentage. So I think moving that in line was definitely a good move. So glad I did. And but yeah, this looks pretty decent. So, but yeah, I'll shut this off real quick. I definitely seem to have done the trick. So awesome. So yeah, that seemed to do the trick. That's what I was looking for. Because before I could get the flex fuel sensor to work, but only if I had literally a full tank of gas. And I think what it was is my return line's on top of the tank, and so I think when I had a full tank, it was keeping that return line full of fuel just by the back, running back from the tank. So it was keeping it full of fuel, so I kind of had a little bit of back pressure, enough that the sensor would read right. And then as soon as I drove it around a little bit and the tank, I used a little bit of the gas where I didn't have that back pressure, it just started going all crazy, the sensor, and running like crap. And took me a little bit to kind of figure out. I thought it was a sensor, so I bought a new one, and I put a new one in there, and but it did the same thing. So now I got a backup, so that's good. I have an extra one. But it so, and then it dawned on me that maybe it just wasn't getting enough fuel flow to read correctly, and apparently I was right. So hopefully this helps somebody out there who might run into the same situation and get frustrated with the flex fuel sensor, because that's what I was getting, a little frustrated with it. Because I mean, when it's working right, it's awesome, because you get the best of both worlds. No matter what fuel you throw in there, you'll be running right. And so being able to have that E85, but if you go on a road trip and you can't find E85, you can hit up the some 93 octane and get in, fired up, and keep on going, like it was intended with the flex fuel sensor. So I'm pretty happy it's working now. So hopefully maybe this video will help somebody out there and do them some good, and the pros and cons. And I think it just depends on your fuel system. Some people might have a lot more pressure running through their return line where that's not even an issue, or maybe if their flex fuel sensor was maybe like way down low, like at the bottom, so that so it always was sitting in some sort of fuel, it had more flow, whereas mine was kind of mounted kind of high, so that I think the fuel would drain out and then just wasn't reading. That's kind of my guess as to what was going on. But I'm happy to have that resolved, and now I can get out there, drive it a little bit, and tweak my tune again, since it's all kind of going to be a little bit out of whack from where I had it before. So I'll be able to tweak it and get it running good and starting up well. I got to get that start up. So cold starts are good. That's just tweaking on this computer here, punching keys, figuring out how it all works. But yeah, hope this helps somebody out there, and thanks for watching. See you next time.